everybody we're going to have for tonight for the brief. I'm going to keep this real short since we don't have a lot. For the people who are here, be sure to filter this through your teams. If anyone has any sort of way to record, be sure to do so and then pass it off to your team, basically whoever's not here. So that being said, welcome to Kuwait. We got a lot of work ahead of us. The current Operation Lions Anvil, will be going into full effect within the next 48 hours. I know it's short notice. That's the reason why we don't have any top brass here. It's basically we're just being called up as the task force. We have a couple hot spots we need to hit, and so the task force is going to be using the fullest extent of who we have to go about making sure all this shit gets taken care of. Captain Church, if you hit the next slide for me.
User in your channel started recording.
So, gentlemen, mission overview, as you can see here. Off the intel we got from Colombia, as well as our foray into Ecuador and the few deployments we've had in between. We've had a lot of traffic, both through cellular phone, photographs, everything else, as well as partnering intelligence forces that has basically pointed right back towards the Middle East, specifically the Horn and Yemen that straddles the Gulf of Aden. A lot of piracy and whatnot have also been facilitating a lot of revenue and stuff into the conflict, as well as the unrest as we've been hearing about in Africa, within the Tigray region, so southern Eritrea, northern Ethiopia. At current, RRC is currently deployed into this conflict to basically build us an intel package for what our main elements will be undertaking here in the next few weeks. Once we have a complete picture, as well as our resources within the French intelligence community, as well as the UN, with UN support and blessing, we'll be heading into this area. Collectively thereafter. To facilitate these targets and make sure that they're taken off the board. So as you read through, basically take note, be sure to pay attention, take any pictures you need to, smartphone, whatever else. Just make sure that this is all filtered out to your men, as well as other supporting elements. Make sure that you have this on board so that we are all on the same page. I do not want to be asked later what we're doing or why. Everyone should basically have this nailed down. So, just to keep it brief with the French and the Chinese currently in this area, the French in particular have taken up peacekeeping on behalf of the UN, as well as the People's Republic of China, oddly, have been having their own UN forces taking up responsibilities in conjunction with the French. As we saw in the news, there was a brief incident where fire was exchanged between them, as many of it coming up with the PLA contractors or those attached to the UN, basically taking a number of wounded and two killed. That I'll get into here a little bit later. But as you can see in the top right there, that is basically what we see from the main terroristic cells, such as Al-Shabaab in Somalia, as well as their branching tribes and organizations that have been moving through northern Kenya, Eritrea, Ethiopia, as well as breaching into areas such as northern Tanzania, which is where part of the task force will be going. So under the threat of what we know or are classifying as the Black Hammer Rebellion, DevGru at this time, I'll just lay it out like this. DevGru at this time will be taking up responsibilities in Tanzania to blunt that push into what is otherwise a pretty peaceful region. It's honestly one of the calmer, less chaotic regions, but with the recent events, DevGru is going in to blunt that and to cut revenue to the Black Hammer Rebellion therein. Next slide, please. So, further breakdown, in particular, we're designating this as Phase 1. Phase 1 for CAG will be called decisive arrow, and trident thrust for DevGru. Ag elements will be dispatched into ongoing crisis unfolding in Yemen, wherein Houthi rebels, whilst being put on the back foot by the Yemenese National Army and the line rebels that we helped before, such as the Mahdi Rebellion and their collective coalition. We're going to be basically going in under the guise of that conflict, and we're going to be taking care of some heads that we did not get to the previous time around, as well as the previous task force could not get to. So it's up for us to basically knock these pieces off the board. So CAG is going on a strictly search and destroy, possibly AFO, to grab these last targets that we know of. It'll be covered in the master key towards the end of this brief. As for DevGru and their attached personnel will be inserted off the coast of Tanzania. Tanzania, despite its otherwise rich culture and ability to avoid extremism, has recently come under threat. Locally, it's known as the Rebellion du Marteau Noir, or the Black Hammer Rebellion, in English. So their groups are encroaching into operations within the borders, as well as interrupting shipping lanes. So the Dev Group basically will be helping with some anti-piracy operations off the coast of Tanzania as well. We do have, I think it's the USS Massachusetts, or I have to fine tune that one. It's a submarine. You guys will be inserted off the coast of Tanzania. Be a sub. We do have work for you the moment you guys get in the area. Again, that will be covered in the next slides going out, as well as the JPELs that are organizing all that shit in that area. So just to reiterate, overall, CAG is going to Yemen. DevGru will be in Tanzania. Basically, we are flanking our main area with trying to cut the supply and ties into the Eritrea region via these adjacent operations. So we've got a little work to do before we get to go in and back up RRC. So again, you will not have the mutual support of each element. CAG and DevGru will be working independently for at least the next 5 to 6 weeks, and then we'll see what intel we have and how that unfolds as we transition. Next slide, please. So this is for Trident Thrust. I know the text is small, but do forgive me. I will give you a brief breakdown. So DevGru is deploying off the coast due to the high quality of rivers, lakes, water. Tanzania is a top priority for the exportation of arms and supplies. We were working against ISIS Mozambique, as well as the splinter groups such as the Black Hammer Rebellion, on behalf of Tanzania's government. So they do know we will be there. Level 3 and 4, or rather level 4 kit will be authorized. You don't have to hide any flags. We're going in to make some noise and to stir up trouble, so we won't have any sort of conflicts with local police or anything as we had in Colombia. So modern day ISIS, rather ISIS Mozambique, however you want to designate them, they are largely operating in this area in tandem with DHR. Mission first and foremost is to basically cut the revenue from the oil fields in the southwest, marked by the red X's down there. You'll see we do have a zoomed in inset that will be on the next slide that we'll show in a moment. But as far as we know, our main name that we have at hand is simply called the Machete. We're still getting information on what his actual name is, and there'll be a deeper target package on behalf of the Machete and his closest advisors, as well as it will be added to on what you guys find on the ground. So you guys will actively be building out your own AO as well as going after what we know. Does everybody understand so far?
Check.
All right. Next slide, please.
Microphone activated.
This is the inset of Trident Thrust for week 1. We do know that just off the coast to the southwest there, we'll say in the bay, it's just deep enough to get SDVs in there, but from there, any sort of movement up the river to the northeast will be done by boats that will be brought in. That will be further discussed with Cherokee with Cherokee element leads, as well as TLs to sort of organize what material and goods you guys need for your mission at hand to make sure this goes off without a hitch. Let's see. So yeah, the oil derricks, 2 small search and destroy are the main ones that you guys will basically be igniting. This is greenlit by the Tanzanian government. If they can't control it, nobody will. So they want that dealt with, as well as the main hub to the north, to the northeast. That town in the center is all we know is that it's heavily occupied, but there's nothing of worth for us in there. Just know that if anything comes out of there, if any reinforcements do seem to mobilize, it will probably be out of that town and probably by boat, trying to get across into what is that, Al Naza, as well as the refinery. So again, keep a note. The question marks are towns of possible QRF. The X's are targets for week 1 that will need to be hit. Anything thereafter will be done, or you will debrief TFR HQ on what you found, and we will sort of compare notes on what to do thereafter. So again, starting out, TFR HQ will be sort of handing you this mission. From there, it's going to be more of the ground up planning as we've covered before. So what you guys find will sort of dictate exactly where we need to go. That makes sense as well.
Roger.
Check.
Any questions or comments from my dev group boys on this initial stage of phase 1?
Nope.
Going once, going twice. All right, Captain Church, next slide, please. This is where we're heading into Yemen for my CAG boys. It doesn't seem like we have our CAG leads tonight, so those who are TLs or those attached to CAG, please be sure to have this handed over to Second Lieutenant Petrash and Sergeant Major Trey, so that they are also tracking on this.
Local.
So, decisive arrow. CAG's role in phase 1 is to first and foremost put an endpoint to the Sons of Swords and their affiliates in the western regions of Yemen once and for all. AQAP and ISIS continue to struggle and fight amongst themselves in the eastern
Muted.
eastern reaches of Yemen. This gives us basically the leeway we need in the west to head into Houthi territory straight up, especially after the incidents prior that we know of. Heading straight into Houthi territory to not only tangle with them, but to also find the heads of the snake and finally cut them off. So intense fighting along the supply routes of the country, of the country regions, are doing little to budge these lines. What we know is the bucket, or where basically what we know of the Sons of Swords and their attached ISIS allies have sort of been ham-fisted in, as you can kind of see the little bulge there, between remnants of the Mahdi rebellion, different tribal allies, as well as the Yemenis National Army, as you can see marked by green. They hold much of the routes into the territory, as well as some of the high ground to the west and the southwest near, I believe that is Tota. So we do know, first and foremost, as we've heard, hostages have been taken in Yemen. They are Yemenis workers that were attached to the U.S. Embassy. There is a small jail, as well as attached buildings marked by those yellow markers that CAG will be sent in first and foremost, as well as possibly into the main city north of there. I believe it is Tota itself, on which CAG will be tasked with rescuing those hostages, counting, I think the number as of right now is counting about 6 or 7, getting them put on birds with the help of 160th and getting them out of Dodge. Everybody tracking on that?
Check.
Affirm.
Microphone activated. Microphone muted.
All right.
Copy.
So just to finish up on this, Afghanistan is basically emboldened a lot of these guys in the Horn. That's why it's as fiery and chaotic as it is now. DevGru and CAG have a lot of work cut out for it before we transition into the Tigray region to help RRC. So for these 5 or so weeks, CAG and DevGru are entirely basically building your own mission packages and undertaking your JPELs in whichever order you deem is most fit, or with whatever intel you guys uncover. All right. So from that point, TFR HQ can give you the framework, but you guys are solely responsible for how this is undertaken. So again, similar to Colombia, a little bit more straightforward. The success or fail of this deployment is solely on the shoulders of your people. Make sure that people are showing up. Make sure that your shooters have their heads on right, and make sure that we aren't throwing shots into people that don't deserve it. I cannot stress that enough. I will not accept another incident such as in Colombia, where wrong targets are getting dropped. We are not in the right place that we need to be in terms of a task force or this unit. So please get everybody on board. People who are here, brief people who you know aren't, etc. Captain Church, next slide. The inset of the CAG operation. As you can see on the slide to the left there, on the south side of Buzarak, there is a small guardhouse that's with the thick HESCO blocked out on that northwestern side. The main compound where the jail is that northeastern building of that compound, as well as that. I think that one that outlies outside of that is just simply a water tower, and then that south sort of upside down triangle, I want to say, is a mosque. If any fighters are in or within or around that facility, you have full authority to go in there and make sure that they basically regret fucking with us. Okay. I will say for this, any mosques that hold fighters are just, they're full go. All right.
Copy.
Before this operation that will be held Monday, CAG is on 48-hour notice to take part in this. Before something happens to those hostages, if they're moved, that mosque on that objective in particular, and only that objective, is a full go if fighters want to fuck with us. If you come across any sort of mosque further into the town, call up if you're receiving fire for it before going in. But again, that compound to the south is our main one. You'll probably be standing by for information on whether the rest of those hostages are held within the main town itself. 160th will be on station to help you guys get around if need be. So it shouldn't be that much. It shouldn't be that too much of a difficulty to figure out what your transports need to be. If you want to also commandeer some shit to get in there, that's also up to you. I'm not going to hold your hand on that one. The green marker up there on the high ground, however, do not engage that hilltop. Those are allies. As far as we know, that is either Yemenis army or part of the rebels that are fighting the Houthis. If you hear fighting coming from that direction, ignore it. That is not our problem. Everybody track?
Check.
Anybody from CAG got any questions, comments, any concerns?
Are any of the MATA guys that we fucking trained up last time we were in country still around, or are we starting from scratch on allies?
Remnants of the MATA rebellion are still sprinkled within there. I do know they are further, I want to say they are further to the east of where you guys will be assaulting Monday. However, we do have a contact within there, so if we need to get in contact with them or need to organize their aid of any sort, I'm sure we can make that happen. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Next slide, Captain. All right. So our JPEL for Eritrea, this does not concern us quite yet. However, I would say you can get a good memory for these names. Abidu is one, also known as the cheerleader. RRC found him in conjunction with another man named Algura. I think within 24 hours of them touching down in country, French SOF was attached to them and operated further to the west of where they were. Incident happened at one of the local embassies or what have you. And the French SOF, as well as one times Captain Young, were pulled off that station. But the info that was found from RRC was well received, as the French and the UN were able to build us this to hand off to you guys for when you guys get in country. Again, you don't have to worry about saving it right now. There will be a deeper target package that will be expanded upon depending on what RRC finds. I'm just trying to get this put in your mind so that at least you know or have a sort of a face to put to a name in case you hear it within the countries you're going to, as some of these guys are intertwined with the movements in your area of responsibility.
Microphone
Does
activated.
that make sense to everybody?
Copy.
Copy.
All right.
Check.
We're just going to quickly go through these slides so you can kind of get the names and the faces. Algura, have a quick read. Abidu and Algura are pretty much one and the same, as well as keep a note. The suits, we're going back to using the suit of cards for each area. I believe the Eritrea area will be clubs. I believe Yemen is all diamonds. And Tanzania are all hearts. So if you hear something about, Queen of Hearts, King of Hearts, all that, you know that it will be facilitated to your area of responsibility so that we don't have any confusion of who is who and who belongs where. That also makes sense.
Check.
Check.
All right.
Bro.
Our captain just keep going through. Got Adnuma, also in the Tigray region, also someone that RRC will actually need to find. This was handed to us by our French SOF just off of the intel that we managed to hand over. Next. This JPEL, we have very little info as to what he looks like or even where he is. We just know that he's a main player. Largely in terms of the piracy and weapons, if you see any weapons that have any sort of Black Hammer Rebellion markings or any sort of personnel that will look like them based off of what packages that we can build up around that rebellion and movement, pick this up, as this JPEL is very important. I believe do I have Kilo with me today?
Negative.
All right, copy. So, have a quick read on this. So, in terms of the group of JPEL 7, if you hear anything related to a group called Mai or Mei, I have no idea how to fucking pronounce that. They're basically just an offshoot within the Black Hammer Rebellion. They're similar to the Sons of Swords in terms of just they have the connections to the weapons that we saw in Colombia and Ecuador that didn't belong there, such as the Type 95s. They're somehow intertwined with the Jilao Incorporated fellows. So I have no idea how that's intertwined. Again, the package still needs to be expanded upon. Just know that if you hear anything about the Mai, that's information that needs to be passed up and put into deployment intel. Next slide. So we transition to diamonds. Some of these names, especially for CAG, will be familiar. These are names we saw in the target packages in Yemen that we did not get to. A lot of these players have been pushed into that bucket, as you recall before, and that are in hiding. CAG is going to be digging these fellas up. Most of them are killer capture. I believe we do have one woman that I would like to see her captured rather than killed. Next slide. This woman in particular, Ali Fafi. She's got a lot of blood on her hands from the UK, as well as possible entanglements in terms of IEDs and engagements of French forces. She is one of our big bads in Yemen. If you find her or have any sort of lead to her, she is top priority. I say again, anything in regards to Al Fafi and anything or any of her workings or people that answer to her, these people are top priority. Any intel that leads to her capture will be considered basically paramount. All right.
Check.
So Al Rubesh, known IED maker. He's a great tactician, planning most of the bombings, IEDs, and assassinations against Saudi forces in Yemen, as well as pushing against rebel forces. He's part of why the Mahdi Rebellion was basically cut up so badly in our last foray, and yet we never could figure out where he was or get his hands on him. I believe he skirted out from under our nose once, but at this point, CAG is tasked to make sure that does not happen again. He does have markings on his right cheek, and we got this information from interrogations. So these packages also will be broken down individually and handed out to each element, so you don't have to worry about having the whole thing. Support elements that ask for it will get the whole deal if they request it. So I know Second Lieutenant Gray requested the entire package so that he could just go through it. As I know, some of the support elements will be bouncing around between AOs from week to week, so we will see. We will make sure that the info that you guys have on the ground is current and correct. We shouldn't have to worry about that. I think that concludes Yemen side of things. Next. So as we see, the Jack of Hearts, also known as the Machete, basically our JPEL 1 for Tanzania. Any info leading to his death and or capture is also considered paramount for DevGru. Also, so yeah, keep a note of him and his ties with ISIS Mozambique. His card is pretty straightforward. Again, it'll be handed out when the time comes. Next one. And this is his primary bomb maker within Tanzania. Recent attacks in Tanzania have basically all been routed to Niamey. All right. So those are very clear cut, clear dry. Those two we know for Tanzania are basically both JPEL 1s. If you ever see anyone talking to them that you consider a JPEL 2 or 3, you also have the responsibility of assigning a suit and card to any other JPELs you deem fit, as you deduce by their importance within the organization. So any sort of suggestion, if you come across a guy that's in AO that's talking to people, looks like he's ordering people around, build that picture, build that package, assign a suit and a number or card to him so that people know his importance and what to listen out for. Does that make sense to everybody?
Check.
Copy.
Check.
All right. Any questions on any of that?
The element's going to be conducting covert operations immediately following the phase 1 operations, which seem like both direct assaults, or to unveil more of this information.
So basically, that is up to the element ICs on how they want to conduct this. If they just want to kick indoors and do DAs until they find what they need, that's one way, but it might scare off your targets. If you guys want to more covertly use your level 1s and sort of mill about, talk to people, and have a strike team in reserve, that is also an option. Again, this is basically up to the element ICs and 2 ICs to dictate how they want their campaigns to go. Again, I will be there to answer questions and formulate the framework so that everything is kept on the right track and that both elements are working in tandem despite being apart. Yeah, depending on how you guys want to go about it, would be more of a question for Commander Paget and Second Lieutenant Petrash. Does that answer your question?
User in your channel is recording.
All right. So this map in particular, this is where RRC is currently situated. This will be the area of Tigray or southern Eritrea in which they are stationed. The cities in red you see are what they've come to be called the Shield. It has a lot of resources out of the south, out of Ethiopia and Kenya, tend to all go through the Shield cities before going into that northwestern region. The only regions we know that are held by friendly forces in this area are the 2 FOBs that are currently being pressed by the Black Hammer Rebellion and parts of the Al-Shabaab offshoot works in the area. So most of that green vegetation region is about what only cover they have. So you can basically imagine where a lot of these weapon caches, vehicle depots, fuel, and so on are being held, as well as where people are hiding. So once RC builds the picture in the south to basically undercut the Shield City, that basically cuts off any sort of reserve or reinforcements from the south. Again, when we get in country, CAG and DevGru are probably going to be tasked with making sure that any sort of JPELs within these areas, especially operating south of the Shield or in its direct vicinity, any JPELs or their relating forces are dealt with. A deeper picture will be built by then. I will warn the oil fields in that southwest. Again, there'll be a deeper brief on that area, probably around the start of the year once we get all pivoted over. But we do have those PLA or Chinese aligned UN forces guarding those under the guise of the Jilao Incorporated Industries or whatever. The proper name will be handed out. All I know is that after the incident with the French, they have basically tied down the little compound at Bum, Riquet, and the cities that run in that line from Asadis oil field, Akherd, Falendar, and I believe stops up there near Janor. So again, there'll be a deeper dive into that when the time comes. So you don't have to worry about that. Just sort of giving you a preview of where you guys will be headed once our tasks and our respective areas are dealt with. Everybody get that?
Check.
Got it.
All right. Next. All right. So, in conclusion, gentlemen, just as an overview, to quickly reiterate so I don't feel like I'm repeating myself or talking your ears off, DevGru is heading into Tanzania. CAG is heading into Western Yemen to take care of their targets. You guys will be working independently for the next 5 weeks and will only have the attached personnel that you have to you. Those support personnels that will be able to bounce around through flights, whatever means that we have. So 160th isn't directly only tied to CAG, etc. Nor is the PJs directly tied to, say, DevGru, and so on. If we have the resources to do so, the support elements will be there for you on request. If you don't need them, don't ask for them. Trying to keep this as smooth and simple as possible, as these next weeks are crucial to the overall deployment. On the administrative side of things, and just out of character, as I usually say, keep all your people in your elements honest. The SOP is in full effect. Don't need horsing around, no fucking about. This is a deployment. This is an FTX where we kind of let things slide, and everything which just kind of went by the wayside for better or worse. This is a deployment, I reiterate. If you see people stepping out of SOP, correct their asses and make sure they're in line, or else they will be pulled from the deployment. I shouldn't have to say that or repeat myself, but it is what it is. So, that being said, I think we have covered all our bases. The intel packages that I have for each element will be handed out. The overall brief, I believe, will be put in deployment intelligence so that everyone has it to relay on or to basically use as their resource should they have any questions. If there's anything deeper than what that fucking than what the resources give you that you need to ask me, my office is open. You can ask myself. You can ask anyone in S2, as they may be able to fill you in, but do not pry into the deeper underworkings because we're not going to tell you shit. So that's out of character. In terms of that, for who I have left, let me see. Captain Church, did you have anything to add?
Just one thing. You could correct me if I'm wrong on this. With what he just said recently about not being DG and CAG being separated, you can still fill in with the elements if they need them. But what you're gonna end up being is a partner force. So you're gonna have to end up changing your name. And when it comes to once everybody gets into Africa, where RRC's at, depending on where you guys are at, you're gonna have to be waiting at your base for a lift by 160th to get over to the rest of the element to help them in conducting their assaults and whatever operations they're doing, and then you'll be going right back to your original FOB or OP or whatever cop you're staying at. So don't think that you're not allowed to go on Friday nights if you're a CAG now, and you're not allowed to go on Monday nights if you're DG. You still can. There's just going to be some caveats to it.
Got it.
That's correct. I was hoping we were gonna have more people here to go through element pictures and do our pre-deployment pictures like we usually do, but because I held it on a Saturday, we didn't have the people. But it is what it is. So if you would like to take pictures and do that, you can. Otherwise, I believe that concludes our deployment brief, unless we have any last-minute comments or questions.
Can I see the screenshot before Ace of Clubs?
Which one was Ace of Clubs? That
Before Ace of
was JPEL 7. Okay.
Hey,
Hey,
Pops, hold up on that.
Pops.
We're gonna do a whole thing with that if I can get the slideshow for a minute. The CAD guys.
If you guys reference our team room, I put the entire thing up there already.
Thanks, Ankle.
Also, Sergeant First Class Harrison, you had that question or assigned to
Yeah,
your
can I
slot?
get the slideshow and the CAD dudes for like 5 minutes
User
after this?
disconnected from your
Yes.
channel.
All right, so if you don't have anything else, gentlemen, and you don't want to take any pictures, I believe Liberation will be up here momentarily. This concludes the deployment brief. Any other questions you have, you can find me in my office. All right.
TFR.
All right, start packing your things. Get ready, CAG. You're gonna be in play in the next 24, 48 hours. And Dev Crew, you guys are heading out to the sub. You guys will be basically feet wet and getting ready for Tanzania. All right.
Check.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Let's get to work, gentlemen.
Good luck, Gag.
Hua.
All right, DG, y'all want to take a picture?
Hey,